Chapter 4: The Makeup of Malice. For some reason I do not comprehend, gods and goddesses are always pleasant to look at. Even Yami, whose handsome face hides nothing but sin. As he stands before me, recognition alighting in his eyes, it is all I can do to keep myself from confronting him regarding Rinku's parents. I must rein in my suspicion for now. If he realizes I am aware of his actions, it may cause him to retreat again, to hide from me. If I can convince him to come with me to the godly realm, to turn himself in to the three, then I will have done at least part of my duty to Hyrule. But before I can take a moment to consider how to broach the subject with him, I see his expression turn sour, and I know this will not be possible. So, instead, I express my well wishes.
You wish I were imprisoned, you mean?
He snarls in response. Though it is true that he must atone for his actions, the last thing I wish for is his suffering. I wish your spirit to be cleansed, that is all. What are you doing in Hylia? I can see in his eyes that he does not believe me. He continues to insinuate that I am selfish and no better than him, ignoring my questioning. Is that what you believe? That I think I am better? What a human perspective to have, I reply. I am not criticizing him, only expressing how curious it is that his point of view is so close to a mortal's. He misunderstands me, lashing out with accusations and defensiveness. He claims that he provides wish fulfillment for his victims, dealing in life and power, but I know better. I have seen the awful aftermath of his deals. Utsu and Mubo are just 2 of thousands who have succumbed to terrible consequences because of this god-turned villain. When first I was sent to investigate Yami's goings-on, the 3 told me that they sensed anguish-induced prayer coming from where he had taken root. They were not aware of who or why. They only knew that strong negative emotion had been emanating outward from his location in waves. They thought that perhaps he was in trouble, that he was experiencing these emotions. But as they live by their stalwart avoidance of witnessing the happenings below them, they sent me instead. I arrived expecting Yami to be captured, saddened, or perhaps even tortured. I expected him to have been caught up in a situation he could not control. But instead, I came face to face with the end of a deal that went wrong. It happened on a cliffside. I walked up behind him and his victim, a man who had made a deal with Yami to find love, unbeknownst to me at the time. Yami had introduced the man to a young woman who soon married him. Their happiness survived all hardship, until she became ill. The man was supposed to have brought Yami others in need of drastic change in their lives, so that he could deal with them as well. That was the transaction. Bring Yami desperate souls, and their love would last forever. But when the woman fell into sickness and perished, the man no longer came through with his promises to Yami. Their meeting place was at the top of this cliff, where the man aired his sorrows to Yami, his desolation after losing his love. Yami berated him for failing to follow through, instead of listening, instead of offering condolence. And I witnessed the man willingly jump to his death, as Yami simply stood and watched. He did nothing to stop him, not a word spoken to prevent it. I'll never forget the look on his handsome face, blank, no emotion, like the 3. When I confronted his actions, he offered nothing but excuses. I know he is beyond help. I wanted to cleanse his spirit in the beginning. I wanted there to be an answer for his renewal and atonement. But the more I tried to make him see, the less likely it seemed that he would. And so, I reported back to the three that Yami had crossed to a darker side. They did not hesitate to tell me to bring him back so that they could enact justice upon him. I knew that this would mean his ultimate imprisonment for an indefinite period, and so did he. So he ran. The god of law had turned from his righteous path, now a god of nothing. All of the pain he has caused cannot compare to what Ganon has done, but it does not erase the fact that Yami has sinned beyond repair or reprieve, and the only thing this knowledge accomplishes right now is to dispirit me. I cannot hold it any longer. Is that what you've done for those poor children's parents? You deal in death, Yami, I say, a fair bit of emotion shining through my voice. He comes back with more defensiveness and an accusation of his own.
Do not throw your judgments at me, Hylia. Not after what you've done.
I narrow my eyes in disbelief.
Oh yes, I know. And one day, you will pay for it all. Not just releasing the beast, but for driving me into hiding. Forcing me to give up the life I've cultivated here.
He knows what I have done. I do not know how, but he does. I begin to distance myself from him as we argue, a kind of fear working its way into my spirit. I do not know whether it is shame or despair that drives this fear, but it is strong. I cannot fix this right now. I must flee. When I am finished, when all is well in Hyrule, you and I—
We'll meet again, yes.
He interrupts and smiles with a bloodlust I've rarely seen. He plans to destroy me. I know this now. I escape his presence, unable to remain, as the emotions in me are building to an uncomfortable height. Retreating to the forest, I walk with the knowledge that I am now in danger on two fronts. Two villains, two beings full of hate. As a goddess who can only love, this fills me with an emotion worse than fear. Trepidation. The knowing that I must destroy them both.
Rinku watched the two higher beings run into each other, and their expressions told him the ensuing conversation would be something to behold. He hid behind some brush on the edge of town, where the gods he had been communing with now communed with each other. Though not gracefully or even calmly like one would suppose benevolent gods might. Instead, the tension radiating from their forms had a palpable nature. Rinku could feel pure rage from Yami, and pure melancholy from Hylia. He understood Yami's rage. He'd felt it himself many times, but Hylia's sadness confused him. He would have expected her to feel some sort of animosity toward Yami, given how Yami made it seem that they were enemies. He couldn't hear their conversation fully. Only snippets here and there, something about wishes, children, and a fair amount of accusational tone. But he did hear Hylia confirm that she had committed the crime Yami claimed she did. By the end of it, Hylia had retreated a few steps, as though trying to get away. Puzzling. According to Yami, she was the villain here. She could be lashing out, but instead, she seemed to want to flee from him. Rinku narrowed his eyes and watched Yami's face contort with searing distaste. What if the god of law and dealings wasn't being entirely truthful? But no, Hylia had released Ganon. That very fact itself meant she had to be evil. She was trying to retreat so she could escape her consequences, like a guilty party would. Once she left, Yami stood there for a few more moments. He stared off into space, his fists clenched and shaking. Rinku wondered if there was more to their relationship than just the knowledge of her wrongdoings. Over a minute or so, Yami seemed to calm, closing his eyes and breathing deep, reining himself in. Then he looked straight at Rinku. Rinku jumped, despite himself.
How long have you been watching, boy?
Yami asked, a slight smirk appearing, cutting through the negative emotion that had been clouding his aura. Rinku knew he couldn't hide anymore. He emerged from the brush sheepishly.
Long enough to know you and Hylia have some history,
He admitted. Yami sighed with a resolute expression. He strode over to Rinku and looked down upon him in a serious way.
You know, it is rude to eavesdrop.
He said. Rinku couldn't look him in the eye. Then Yami chuckled.
But I am glad you did.
He confessed.
I don't know how much you heard, but you must have determined that I am not happy with the goddess.
Rinku nodded.
she doesn't understand you.
He agreed.
I get it.
Only one person in the world understood Rinku. Everyone else had preconceived notions about him that were just not true. Yami cocked his head to the side.
It seems we have much in common. Come, let us talk.
They retreated to the outskirts of the forest. Rinku kept an eye out for Hylia, but she was long gone. He wondered what her next steps were, if she'd even done what she said she would for him, or if she was just a liar. Yami refocused Rinku's attention on the mission at hand.
Good work getting that stone.
Rinku frowned. He hadn't told him yet.
How do you know?
Yami laughed.
I am a god boy. I have my ways.
Rinku smiled with pride and pulled the mask out, presenting it to Yami, who took a step backwards and raised his hand defensively.
Let's keep that far from me,
He said with a nervous chuckle. Right. Yami was a god too. He would be weakened himself if he touched the mask. Rinku didn't know how much, given he'd only gotten one of the 3 artifacts. But it must be enough to have some kind of impact. He put the mask away, and Yami relaxed.
Now, are you ready for your next step?
Rinku's heart jumped at the thought. He wondered how intense this next step would be. Acquiring the Stone of Silence had been a full adventure on its own, after all. But he nodded in assent, reminding himself that he was the hero, and he must take on this mission with fervor. Yami's eyes lit up.
A malicious crystal.
He said, speaking the words as though they had flavor.
What's a malicious crystal?
It is a concentrated form of malice itself.
Malice? Like evil?
Yami took a moment before responding.
It comes from the beast.
He admitted.
A focused orb of dark energy, birthed from Ganon's evil nature, yes. When the energy becomes dense enough, it forms into a crystal, making a home inside calcified rock. This is the artifact you will need to acquire.
From Ganon himself, Rinku's heart sank.
I'll have to get close to him?
You won't need to get close at all. Malicious crystals have formed all over Hyrule, but you're likely to find them in Hyrule Field, where his malice has spread the most.
It's that red stuff, isn't it? It's in the sky too.
Rinku said, gazing up at the ruby-colored sky above them. Yami confirmed with a nod.
As I've told you, I would obtain these items, but malice is a substance that I cannot touch. Earthly beings cannot either without injury. But The calcified rock surrounding the condensed energy will protect you.
But it won't protect you?
Indeed, I am too vulnerable to its aura.
Rinku sighed in contemplation.
So, all I have to do is go to Hyrule Field and pick one up? It's that simple?
It's that simple.
For the first time, Rinku really began to see the importance of himself. The gods of his earthly realm, the creators of his lands and his people, could not perform these tasks. Tasks that could save Hyrule from an even worse fate than it already had. If Hylia could release Ganon, allowing his malice to spread, what else was she capable of? He was going to take down a goddess. He focused himself, pulling in all of his determination, giving it a place to rest in his heart. This was his destiny.
I'm ready.
He said. Before Yami left him, he gave Rinku a proud slap on the back. He couldn't help but be reminded of his father, who had admired independence. This was a little like having him back. Yami was a firm presence, a little scary at times, to be frank, but an influence nonetheless that had changed Rinku in a way he never expected. He finally had something on which to focus his anger. He could finally do something about it. He almost charged right out of town and into Hyrule Field, but realized he shouldn't do so unarmed. Rinku didn't own any weapons, but he knew someone who did. Elder Chi-Chi never left the house without Uday. Even when he was in the house, Uday remained strapped to his hip, the old man's extra limb. He even slept with the blade. However, when he was washing, Uday hung upon a hook on the wall. Rinku convinced Eri to stay inside for the rest of the day, playing games with her by the fireplace and idling around, waiting for a watchful Chi-Chi to bathe, who had stopped going to the pub after his last late-night indulgence. They hadn't all spent time together like this in a long while, and Rinku actually found himself enjoying it. Eri soon went off to bed, and Rinku pretended to fall asleep in the living room. Once Chi-Chi finally rose to get to his nighttime routine, Rinku popped his eyes open and slunk into the elder's bedroom. There, Uday hung on the wall, its only vulnerable moment of the day. He touched the cold metal, temporarily blinded by a flash of reflected candlelight. Uday was the perfect size blade for Chi-Chi, but it felt giant to Rinku. He'd never held it before now, and as he gripped the pommel and lifted it from the wall, its light weight surprised him. Stealing from Chi-Chi, even if it was technically borrowing, counted as yet another betrayal of someone taking care of him, especially considering how sacred Uday was to the old man. Rinku felt attacked on all sides by the shame, but he needed something to protect himself, and a tree branch just wouldn't cut it this time. He second-guessed it, only for a moment, then left the house with Uday in hand. He'd bring it back. Chi-Chi would be fine without his extra limb for a couple of hours, and when all of this was over, the mission, the adventure, Chi-Chi would understand why Rinku had to do it. The road to Hyrule Field was at first dense with brush and trees, but after he crossed Lake Hylia, it began to clear, opening Rinku's world to the wide expanse of Hyrule's most famous plains. He could see the castle in the distance, covered in a much denser red haze that was Ganon's Malice. The evening remained cool and calm, even though those red skies still misted the land and made it darker than it should be. But at least this time Rinku didn't have enemies at his back, and the sea as his only form of escape. He kept his eyes open, listening for hissing sounds that could indicate arrows wheeling through the air at him. He had heard that bokoblins now littered the field, but they had to sleep at some point, right? Maybe he'd get lucky and wouldn't encounter any this time. The ones at the beach must have been lost, or perhaps foraging, but he imagined they could make more of a home in the field, using the stray trees as cover, a place to rest. Or he was just telling himself these things so he wouldn't drown in anxiety over simply the thought of coming across a monster again. He would use Uday if he had to, but he truly hoped he wouldn't. The castle loomed closer, and Rinku saw why he wouldn't need to go near it. Globs of the Malice Yami spoke about puddled here and there, almost to the edge of the field. He saw that much of it was in the grassy plains and away from the path. He had hoped he wouldn't have to stray from the pathway, but it seemed that was his fate. He stepped off, noting some rocky landmarks that he could look for upon returning. As he squinted around the grass, searching for malicious crystals and doing his best to avoid the malice puddles, it occurred to him that this was only the second time he'd ever visited Hyrule Field. The first was with his father, when his mother was pregnant with Eri, and a 6-year-old Rinku was feeling sore about the fact that he'd have to share the love of his parents with a sibling. His father had taken him out here to show him how fascinatingly vast Hyrule was. He'd explained to him that the feeling Rinku experienced when he looked out on the waving green grass, felt the wind against his face, smelled the flowers on the air. That was a feeling he could provide his sister when she was born. He could one day take her out here and allow her to experience the beauty of the world she was born in, to show her how just the smell of Hyrule could enchant a person into peace. Either way, Eri would be born, so his father said Rinku might as well take it upon himself to be a good brother, instead of wallowing in dejection. He'd never gotten the opportunity to bring her here. Besides, he preferred the shelter of the forest and the presence of his mother and sister. His father had just made him feel that he was never grateful enough for all he had. As he jumped the gloopy Malice and ruminated on his complicated feelings for his parents, he felt his foot kick something solid across the grass. Chasing it as it rolled, he could see grayish rock, about the size of his fist, hiding the purplish-red substance inside. He knelt down to check it out, perplexed by the difference in color. It was most certainly less red than the rest of the Malice surrounding him. Perhaps its condensed state made it so. Some kind of science mixed with magic. Rinku reached for it, but hesitated. Yami said he would be able to touch it, but it frightened him anyway. It was still a product of the worst being known to Hyrule, still the physical manifestation of evil itself. Though he knew he was the hero, his heart already felt tainted by his less-than-moral actions over the past few days. What if just being in the vicinity of this evil substance influenced him too? What if he couldn't come back from it all? That was one thing that was keeping him going. The knowledge that when it was all over, he could atone for his sins. That people would understand the reasons for his thieving and lying. He had to believe that would still be the case. He tried to sigh his anxiety away and grasped the malicious crystal, wincing, but feeling no different. His body relaxed. Then it tensed again as a high-pitched squeal echoed across the plains. He expected to see the bokoblin charging toward him, but did not expect to see it riding a horse. Rinku's jaw dropped, and he froze as he helplessly witnessed the creature galloping toward him, spinning a spear above its head. At least this one didn't have a bow. He raised Uday, trying to imitate the way Chi-Chi would wield it when practicing his sword-fighting forms. It felt awkward, and he wished he could use both hands, but he was also clutching the malicious crystal, unwilling to let it go for even a moment. It was too important. Before he knew it, the bokoblin and its steed were already on him. He could do nothing but duck as the spear came twirling toward his head, and he could feel the rush of air it brought with it tousle his hair. The monster squealed again, this time with frustration. It didn't take much to make these creatures impatient, and it circled around to come at him again. He had to get the thing off the horse. Having the high ground gave it too much of an advantage. Maybe he could try piercing it from the ground, but he would risk maiming the horse. And Rinku knew Eri would never forgive him for that if she ever found out. As the creature got its bearings, Rinku's gaze strayed to the crystal in his hand. It shimmered, and a slight glow emanated from inside it. Such a beautiful color, hidden by a hardened shell. Then it clicked. Rinku plunged the sword into the ground and readied himself. The bokoblin galloped straight at him, spinning that spear and squealing in delight. When it came close enough, Rinku chucked the crystal at its head as hard and as fast as he could. It made contact with a loud clunk, and the creature screamed as it was propelled off the horse's back, slamming to the ground. The horse galloped away, and Rinku yanked Uday from the earth, raising it again, this time to truly fight. It took the bokoblin a second, but it stood up, shaking its head and clutching it. When its eyes fell on Rinku again, it squealed in pure rage, pointing at him, and rushed towards him without its spear in hand. Rinku didn't know where the weapon had fallen, but it must have been hidden in the grass somewhere. The creature didn't seem to care. It only knew that it wanted to tear Rinku to pieces. Its clunky and reckless pursuit proved to be its end. Rinku simply pointed the sword as the bokoblin mindlessly charged him, and it impaled itself in the chest. It perished with an expression of hate frozen on its face. Rinku let the creature fall off of the blade, and to his surprise, its body burst into a magenta haze, disappearing entirely. Considering these creatures seemed to have come from nowhere, it made sense that they would burst into nothing with their deaths. But it was still a sight to see. Rinku shook himself out of his reverie and searched around for the crystal. He spotted it from its glow, plucking it from the ground and feeling that sense of pride again. But he didn't revel in it too long, as the night was growing even darker, and he must get home before another vicious squeal could cut through the silence of the field.
Yaken's disappointment at my return does not surprise me, but it doesn't help matters either. My highest priority is Rinku's mission and her little go-wrong quest, on which she wishes to send me, is of little importance. I do wish to see a prophecy come to light, but I am also making my own destiny. She will just have to be patient, as I have been.
Whatever you're doing on your own time, it doesn't matter to me.
She tells me, as I advise that her patience is necessary for my plans to coalesce with hers.
We will be sailing to the Goron's Islands in 2 days. Meet us there if you plan to follow through with your promises.
As long as you can provide me a prophecy when the time comes, I will do all I can, I retort. She scoffs at me, spitting again.
You're putting a lot of faith into our prophecy-wielding, dealer. You do know it is not an exact science, yes? Prophecies may be accurate until one tiny detail changes, and the entire prediction collapses in on itself. If you invest too much into the ritual, you'll only find that your ego will block you from true knowledge.
Finally, some wisdom from the insufferable captain. Noted, I reply. I do not wish to speak to her any longer. I remain on the ship for less than an hour. The stink and the hatred from Yaken are too overwhelming today. I would rather be monitoring Rinku's progress. But as I leave Yaken's cabin, good riddance, I see one of the locked doors along the dim hallway has been left ajar. A fish has perhaps neglected their duty of keeping things locked tight on the Roger. The intrigue is too tempting for me to ignore. Glancing around and seeing no one, I slowly enter the room, shutting the door behind me and hoping to find treasure or at least rupees to swipe. But as I move farther into the room, I instead see a familiar face, lit by lanterns and locked behind prison bars. She doesn't seem to recognize me. Not at first. She's been tortured, starved, and perhaps psychologically injured as well. The bones of her face are much sharper than they were when she first approached me 6 months ago, and she has a crazed look in her eyes. She backs away from the bars as I approach, plastering herself against the wooden hull behind her and sinking to the floor. Well, well, I say, crossing my arms in fascination. It seems you've gotten yourself into a conundrum, Utsu. She doesn't respond, simply chewing her lip in an anxious way. Do you not know who I am? I ask her. She opens her mouth to speak, but no sound emerges. I do not know if she has gone mute or if she is just afraid. I am...
Dealer.
She interrupts. Her voice is raspy from disuse, or perhaps screaming. What have these pirates done to you? I ask. I have no sympathy for her. I am simply curious how long they have held her prisoner. She squeezes her eyes shut and shakes her head several times. Too many times for the action to equal a simple no. She is damaged, likely beyond help. Not that I would offer it. I turn to leave, my curiosity sated, but she makes a guttural sound from her throat, attempting to catch my attention, and crawls towards the prison bars, clutching them in desperation.
Don't leave me.
She begs. I turn back to her, contemplating. Perhaps there is something she can do for me, something she is still good for. All right, I relent. I won't leave you, for now. However, her pupils dilate and her breath is racked. She is indeed desperate. There is still an opportunity for us to close our deal. Do you remember what you agreed to do for me? She hesitates, but then nods her head haltingly. Say it, I demand.
Treasure.
What treasure?
Crystal core.
I smile in satisfaction. So she still possesses some sense. If you can get that crystal core, Utsu, I can release you from this prison. I can get you back to your children. Her eyes widen at my words. It seems they have not beaten the memories of her children out of her yet. Good. She'll need that motivation. I'll be back for you. Keep your eyes and ears open. If you can provide me with good information, perhaps I can release you sooner.
Are they alright?
Tears fall from her eyes as she asks. They are alive, I reply. I can't give her too much. Not yet. Eyes and ears open. As I leave the ship, my mind reels with the possibilities that have opened up to me. Of course, I could let Rinku know that I encountered his long-lost mother, but I'll be keeping that information close to the chest for now. With Utsu on board the Roger, working for me, I have another advantage over the intolerable captain.
I refrain from telling the boy that the elder instigated his mother's disappearance. It is not necessary for him to know, and I believe it will only cloud his judgment. But I do tell him that the elder was sincere in his belief that she did not abandon her children, that she wanted to obtain justice for her husband and their father.
I never really knew he cared like that. I always thought he felt forced into taking us in. Nobody else in town wanted to.
Rinku states this with an air of acceptance. The boy has changed since I last spoke to him. I am not aware of what has happened, but it seems something has affected his mindset. He seems more confident, more engaging. I can tell that Elder Chi-Chi cares for you and your sister, I explain. He desires the best lives for you both, and he seemed to feel better when I offered my help. The boy smiles with a certain sadness that has remained, despite his growing maturity.
So, how exactly are you going to help, Holy Mother? What's the next step?
He needs to refocus, which I understand and will oblige. Well, if your mother did indeed seek out the pirates, then we must as well. There are several pirate factions across the seas and shores of Hyrule, so we will need to narrow them down to the likely suspects.
How can I help?
He asks, his eyes bright with sincerity. Allow me to investigate. You live your life here as best as you can. That is what Elder Chi-Chi wishes you to do, as well as I.
But I can fight, Holy Mother. I could go with you to the pirates. I can hold my own, I promise.
I smile at his enthusiasm. The boy is without fear now. Something surely must have occurred. Your fervor is needed at home, Rinku. Protect your sister. Imagine if you did the very thing your mother did, leaving her alone. Eri needs you here. If he is as mature as I assume, he will agree. He looks to the ground with disappointment, but quickly recovers.
Alright, I'll stay.
Good. You can trust that I will find her, Rinku. I wish to bring your family back together. I tell him that I will send him a seagull when I have more information to share, and I shoo him away with hope. This task is one that I have made a priority, despite my mission to destroy Ganon. However, now that a few days have passed with no major attacks or events, I must see to that mission as well. I must know what the beast is doing and how he is preparing his ultimate coup of the land. I do not know what has become of the king or princess. If they have fled, they have not revealed their location. This could mean they have perished, but I choose to have faith that they are alive and planning a way to fight him. It would do me well to have companions in this undertaking, after all. So, I take on the consciousness of a seagull yet again, and fly toward the castle. This time, no Malice rains from the sky. All has settled, so my flight is uneventful. But when I arrive, I see that the Malice has overtaken Castletown and the castle itself. Entrances are blocked off, rivers of Malice flood the castle grounds, and not a pure soul roams them. I do see monsters, however, marching, brooding, raving. I cannot even perch anywhere, and must circle the grounds in the air, taking in the terrible sights. I see no way in. Dejection grows inside me. All of this planning, all of this treachery, and this is where I am left, with no way inside the place in which Ganon rests, gathering energy for a brewing war, I am sure. I must get inside somehow, though, must find him and take him on. But for now, there is nothing. I return to my body with no future plan. Is this how mortals feel when they are compelled to pray to the gods? No options left, no way to move forward. Their only chance being the mercy of higher beings who are unaware they even exist. At least I still have a mission with which I can be productive. Finding Utsu will be a task I can accomplish that will outweigh my treachery, lies, and omissions of truth. I can still make the world a better place by bringing Rinku's mother to him. And so, I will focus on this, and decide how best to enter the castle later. Perhaps I shall simply wait for Ganon to leave it himself.
Next time on Destined to Drown. The third artifact Rinku needed to acquire. Blood. Could he hurt an innocent person?
My world goes dark as a bag is forced over my head from behind.
All you care about is opportunity, isn't it? Who cares on whom you tread along the way? Take him to the brig.
Aye, she was here that day. She wanted to go to Eventide.
I hear you're looking for a pirate ship.
I am indeed. Have you seen it?
The Deathmount Isles.
There has to be some reason why she never came back. She loves us, Rinku.
She left us, Aerie.
Maybe it isn't her who doesn't love us. Maybe it's you who doesn't love her.